Hey everyone, and welcome back to Firestone Forge. I know I'm kind of going deep into this SCA story time, but what I really want to try and convey is how powerful this is for me all these years later. It's been got to be close to 20 years, if not 20 years on, and these are still some of the my most favorite memories. Okay, and I want to share this so that way maybe other people can get excited by the idea or the prospect and come out and experience it for themselves. So that's why I'm kind of talking about these different stories. So this story here, it takes place at a war event in California, or CAID, CAID, the Kingdom of CAID. It takes place at a war called Highland War. Now, again, this is many years ago. I had been fighting for less than 2 years at that point, and a lot of stuff had happened. I had been going to tournaments. I had gone to a couple of wars and stuff like that, and I had been fighting with this one specific group of guys, and had learned a lot from them. Well, I had managed to get asked to be a man at arms to this knight. Uh, I was his man at arms before he got knighted, and he was a part of that same group of friends and everything. Um, well, at Highland War, they were having what was called a newbie knockabout tournament. So it was for any fighters who were under 2 years, so they're still newbies, to come out and fight. Now they could be a squire, they could be an unbelted and stuff like that, and those are different kind of stuff we'll talk about later. But there were my knight and two other knights that were part of that same group, good friends. They were sat up on the side of the Eric. Now this was at the end of the day, so this was called a torchlight tournament kind of thing. Well, a bunch of people had come to show up for the tournament and stuff like that to see how it was, see the different fighters. And one of the reasons why I'll never forget it was because I used to fight with this really, really massive heater style shield. A heater is one where you basically, the piece of metal or wood or whatnot is attached to your arm. You'll have a strap coming across here, you'll have a hand piece and whatnot, and you kind of move it around a certain way. Anyway, I had fought with a very, very large heater for a long time. Well, part of the problem became is that I relied on it so much that I was very static. I didn't move. There was no point for me to move because I didn't have to because my shield was too big. Well, I took a little time off of fighting and everything. Like I didn't go to a couple of events. And I worked and I made myself a new shield, a much smaller shield. It was a much more normalized size shield, maybe just a little bit under, because my knight had told me, hey, I want you to fight with something a little bit smaller so you can get used to it, force you to move. And I was like, I don't know, okay, all right, whatever. So I made this shield and I hadn't fought with it, it's like ever. So I go out to this tournament and I have never fought with this shield, and I am very nervous because I'm a very static fighter. I stay in one place and I just throw a couple of shots, is how I used to fight. And these three knights, my knight and these two others, they're sitting off to the side and they're just talking smack back and forth to each other. And this one goes, oh, my squire is going to beat your squire, because they both had squires in the tournament. And he's like, oh, my squire is going to beat your squire. Oh yeah, well, my squire is going to beat your squire. And my knight turns around and looks at them both. He goes, oh yeah, well, my man at arms is going to kick both your squires' butt. And I'm just standing right, I had helped set up his chair, and I'm just kind of standing there, before going to get ready to fight. And I just kind of look over at both of them and I'm like, I don't know about that. I didn't say anything, but I just kind of gave the face, and they all kind of continued ribbing each other because that's good natured fun. So I go off to the side, I get ready, and I get my armor on, and I'm a little nervous, of course, because I haven't fought for a couple of weeks. It had been about a month and a half or something like that. And so I go out there, and I'm one of the first fights, and lo and behold, it's this squire. It was one of their squires. So I go out there and I'm looking at her, and I had helped kind of train her a little bit, just like I was the human Pell. Let's just put it that way, okay? And she was already a great fighter, so I was very nervous, and she's just got all this just oozing confidence, right? And I'm just like, oh crap. Now she was very petite, and so I'm like, well, I've got some size on her. I wasn't as big as I am now. I was still the same height, but I was much skinnier. Anyway, so They call Lay on for us to fight, and she smacks her shield, and I smack mine, and I'm just thinking to myself, okay, this is just going to be over. And she just struts, like shield down, weapon down, just struts up to me, and I'm just like, oh, she's going to pull something out that I've not seen, and she's just going to whoop me. She throws 3 shots in rapid succession, just bam, 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 and like come for this side of my head, brings it back around, tries to get my body, brings it back around, and tries to get my leg. Well, I just block with my shield. And she takes a couple of steps back, like it was fast. And she takes a couple of steps back, and I take a couple of steps back, and I just kind of look at her. She just kind of looks at me. I look down at my shield, and I'm like, okay, I can work this thing. And I just smack the shield, and I just start coming in. I end up winning that fight, and I went through the tournament, and it ended up being the very last fight was against the other squire. Uh, and it was the best 2 out of 3. First round, I killed him. Like, he just kind of opened up. He had this kind of like lean back technique thing, and he just kind of opened up a little bit, and I just kind of came right over the top and got him in the head. And then the second one, he got me in the stomach. And I'm like, oh man, so this is all tied up, and there was a crowd around, and everybody's getting a little tense. One of the other knights, him and his knight, he had been his squire, they both fought with a heater, same as I did, and they were both kind of giving me a little bit of stuff because of the way I was standing and the way I was using it. I was just copying what I had seen them do, because I'm fighting with a much smaller shield than what I was used to. So my stance was much lower, and it was much closer to the way that they fought. And so I had heard them laughing earlier throughout the fight, not like in a bad way. They're just like, yeah, he's just picking it up, just like, just watching us do it. And I hadn't done it. Anyway. So it comes down to the last bout between me and this squire. And as he's coming in, I just see this spot. I'm like, well, his shield is directly in front of him, and his sword is up here because he's right-handed. He's using a center boss shield, so he holds it in the middle. Anyway, so I just go, okay, I've got my heater and my sword, so I'm holding my heater up. I'm protecting my face, right? And I've got my sword here kind of like blocking. And I just take a step to the left, and I fire the shot right into his torso, right into his solar plexus. And he had armor there and stuff, so it was fine, but it was that instant thing. Now, a bunch of artisans and stuff like that had given little bits of gifts up for this tournament prize. This one shop had given some dragon's blood incense, which I won the tournament. I got this stuff. One had made a handmade old school style top. So it was like kind of a holder and a top on a string with a string, and you pull it and the top would go down. It was a children's toy. There was a kind of a pendant that had a dragon in a circle. But one of the things that I still have was a tapestry of like Celtic knotwork, but it was 3 horses kind of going around and a bunch of Celtic knotwork. I still have that. That's still back in California. That's still back at my storage unit. And there was also a little tin of Bruise Begone salve ointment that you rub on yourself if you get a bruise, and it worked like a charm, trust me. Anyway, so the whole thing is that I was afraid at the start of it that I was gonna get just beat up by these squires and by the other fighters. There were other fighters in there, and they had been fighting. Some of them had been fighting less than me. Some of them had been fighting more, but all of them had a lot of good skill. And I was quite thoroughly impressed with myself that I was able to make it through and that I had won. And it was one of those truly incredible moments that, again, it still sticks with me. All these years later, I've had so many incredible fights through tournaments, through wars and everything else like that. But these are some of those ones that just you can't help but think back on. And I really hope that my excitement and my love for this has kind of transferred through and maybe inspired you in some way. Please look us up. We're the Society for Creative Anachronisms. We're international, and we're looking for you. See you later.